p.m. You guys would all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for long recitals. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Next on the agenda is the roll call. So
Mayor Queenie Bars.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Fred Brooks.
Here.
Trustee Ed Hallam. Trustee Betsy Harrison.
Here.
Trustee Cindy Simpson.
Here.
Trustee Janice Bryan.
Here.
Trustee Brent McWhorter.
Here.
Okay, we still have a quorum, so we will continue on. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda, and I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Fred Brooks and a second by Trustee Denise Bryant and Trustee Betsy Harrison to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All approved say sound. Motion carries. Next is the approval of the minutes of the February 10th, 2021 meeting, and I would entertain a motion.
I move we approve the minutes of February 10th, 2021 as presented.
Second.
Here we have a motion by Trustee Brent McWhorter and a second by Trustee Cindy Simpson to approve the minutes of February 10th, 2021 as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say sound. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is a proclamation for Women's History Month. Town of Mancos Proclamation of Recognition and Appreciation. Whereas March is National Women's History Month, and whereas women make innumerable contributions to society on family, local, state, and international levels in raising families, education, health, arts, science, business, and government. And whereas women's history is a march toward full equality and responsibility of citizens. And whereas we believe each generation of daughters, granddaughters, and nieces must have fuller opportunities to develop their fullest potential. And now therefore be it resolved that I, Queenie Bars, Mayor of Mancos, do hereby proclaim the month of March 2021 as Women's History Month in Mancos. In witness whereof I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of Mancos to be herein affixed this 24th day of February 2021. Did you catch that? Okay, next on the agenda is audience business. And it looks like we have Patty Russell. And if you would approach the podium and give your name and address, and you have
Is it on? Okay. My name is Patty Russell. Well, this is harder than last one. And I live at 37271 Road G.25 in Mancos, over by Mesa Verde. But more importantly, I am one of the artisans of Mancos at the gallery on the corner of Main and Grant. And I'm also the treasurer of that business. So I'm here to talk to you briefly about the impacts the bridge is going to have on our business. And I'm afraid at the end of this scenario, it looks pretty grim. And I'll tell you why. We're a co-op. All of our members pay dues every month, and then at the end of the month, they get a check for any art of theirs that's sold. And sometimes they get nothing, and sometimes they get quite a bit of money. In a good year, we do over $100,000 worth of business. This last year, we were 72% lowered in our revenues. So we all took a big hit, but we all stuck it out, and we all said we're going to make it through this, and next summer we're going to thrive, to the point that we didn't know about the bridge, and we are closed right now doing a complete renovation of our building, of our business in the building, thinking that, okay, we're going to polish this up and we're going to go for it this summer and we're going to make some money. And then we find out about the bridge. Well, the situation is, if we don't have 17 artists at Artisans of Mancos, we cannot make our overhead. And that's what I'm afraid of, is people are going to say, I didn't make a penny last year, and I'm trying hard to stick it out, but it's just not worth it. Because I see us as having possibly the same kind of revenue stream this year as last year with all the construction going on. So I just want you to consider that, because we've been in business since 2003 on the corner of Main and Grand, and we might not be here after this summer. So what we would love to see is the town figure out some creative way to push that project into October, or have the contractor work 4/10s and at least give us our weekends, or how about having them work evenings starting at 4 in the afternoon and get some light plants out there. I know it would be noisy, but not as bad as what's going on during the day. So, do I have very much more time?
You have 2 minutes.
I just want to say one other thing. This is the streetscape concept that came from meetings with design, landscape architect people that came from Colorado State University, I believe, about 4 years ago. And we went to meeting after meeting, and lots of business owners went. We all bought into this, and I don't see this implemented in the bridge design. So I hope you can look at this, look at your bridge design, and you know, some of the things in this are very cool, like embedding horseshoes in the concrete. So, I mean, this is all about keeping Mancos historically cowboy. And that's what the people of this town said they wanted. So I hope you look at that. Also, on the plans that I looked at online, they're kind of hard to see because, you know, they're not this big. But it looks like there are stairways on both sides going on the south side of the bridge.
No stairs.
Are they going down under the bridge or up?
No, that's just the engineer's rendering. There are no stairs. We're putting sidewalks.
Ramp.
Yes.
Sidewalks. Okay. That's good. I was worried about ADA and moms with strollers. Okay, well, anyway, I hope you'll take that into consideration when you talk about the bridge construction. I know it might have some financial impacts to you, but it could have dire consequences for Artisans of Mancos. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving right along, and when you came in late, did you want to speak under audience business, or are you just here to listen?
Here to listen.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Just wanted to make sure that you came in late. Okay, the next one is Hannah Van Meter, and you come to the podium, give your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
My name is Hannah Van Meter. I live at 11762 Road 39.2 here in Menace. So my business is pertaining to, I know I might just be beating a dead horse here, but it's pertaining to the move of Livewell to the Millwood building. So basically, I have a survey, which I have on my phone. I didn't get a chance to print it off, but I'd be happy to email it to any of you guys or whoever it needs to go to, saying that it's 485 feet and not over 500 as it was previously discussed back in January, I guess. I came late to the meeting on February 10th, so I didn't get a chance to make my points, but I do have signatures here which are in very poor condition, because I may or may not have dropped them in the mud getting into my car after my event a few weeks ago. But there's a lot of people who are concerned about there wasn't even any addressing the issue at the meeting that you guys approved it on, knowing there was a conflicting survey. So just kind of to revisit that and just at least consider the other conflicting survey.
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Can I respond? You know what I would encourage is taking this lady's comments and just making part of the public comment record that we keep. However, the public hearing on this licensing application was open and closed on January 27th, 2021, and there's no process we have for the Board of Trustees to reconsider the license once it's been granted. So, really the process we have in our code that would allow that.
Did you hear him okay?
The gist.
Yeah, that is our attorney. Okay, all right, thank you.
Can I still give these to you guys with another supervisor? I am so sorry about the condition they're in.
That's all right, no problem. Thank you.
Okay, also, the next is announcements.
I do have just a couple. It's appropriate. The Main Street Bridge project is out to bid for construction bids. And we did receive feedback from a couple of local businesses concerned about the impact that this will have on their business. So staff will be hosting kind of a joint town hall meeting. We've been talking about a town hall meeting with the Marshal's office. So we're going to have a joint town hall meeting with the Marshal's office and then Rachel and I on March 9th at 5:30 here at Town Hall so that citizens can come and talk to us about their concerns, address the Marshal's office if they have anything happening. So just wanted to let you guys know that was coming. We have a Mayor's, Managers, and Commissioners meeting on March 11th, I believe. We're doing it here in Mancos this time, so we will have some information for you now that we have the new commission seated. We're hoping to see Cortez and Dolores as well. So after that meeting, we'll bring information back to the board. That's all I have right now. I don't know if Justin or Terry have anything right now? Okay, that's all we have.
Heather, could I ask?
Yes.
What time is that again? I missed it.
March 9th from 5:30 to 6:30 here.
5:30 to 6:30. Okay.
And we'll have cookies, coffee, water.
Okay, and those of you who got your CML newsletter, if you notice on the front featured in this issue, CML is now accepting nominations for the San Mammoth Good Governance Award, and it is for staff or board members who have done an outstanding job, and I would like permission from the board to nominate Heather for that award. And so I've been working on it with some people who have been working with her for several years, and so I just, it's a chance for us to recognize her efficiency and effectiveness of government, the responsiveness to the need of the town, openness and transparency, respect for the rule of the law, accountability to self and others, her inclusivity, the ethical behavior and conduct, her innovation, representation of all constituents, and the physical accountability. And I think that we have a good chance of somebody from our staff winning that award. So I just want you to know that I am going to be doing that thing. So does anybody else on the board have anything? Justin, do you have anything? No. Terry? Rachel?
She'll speak later.
I think it's a great idea.
I did meet with the president of the school board to try to get minutes from their meetings so that we can know what's going on, and I did watch their last meeting, and it was better after I gave them some tips on placement of their camera and everything. They are holding a town hall meeting or a school board meeting with the public on the 2nd over at the school to try to get input from the community about their search for a superintendent and what the community is looking for in a candidate.
Okay. Do you know what time, Brent? Sorry.
I think it's at 6, but I will have to check.
All right, so that would kind of fall under the committee reports. Do you have any awards for the committee reports?
No, that's pretty much the whole meeting.
So I did, the next thing on the agenda is the committee reports and the Montezuma County Planning Commission. I did attend that on the 2nd Thursday of the month. They had 6 public hearings, all for subdivisions. 4 of them were small ones to subdivide off some acreage for family members, so that they can give their sons and daughters a small piece of land. The other 2 were some fairly minor subdivisions going in. One was a 4 plot, I think 5 acres each, so, and then the other one was an 8 plot section, but then nothing was pertaining to the Mancos, close to Mancos. They were all over in Cortez, but it was still very interesting to listen and the questions asked. Do they meet these codes? And as long as they meet those codes, then the commission has no reason to deny them, so then they vote to send them on to the county commissioners for approval. And so that be kind of like something that going to our board, our P&Z. They would just make a recommendation to us, but they do all the research to make sure that they met all the code and things. So very interesting to sit there and listen to. Okay, the next on the agenda is the presentation from Laura Lewis Moschino from Region 9. Laura, are you with us?
Yes, I am actually on Zoom. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Can you see me? Yes. I really appreciate the opportunity to use Zoom, and I hope it works for you today. I know in your packet you have a bunch of slides, and if it's all right, I'd like to go through that presentation. But Heather, do you have a time limit that you want me to stick to? Because I just want to make sure I honor that.
I don't have a specific time limit. We have, well, I think you saw the agenda, but I think that the information you have is rather important. So I say do your presentation, and that way if the board has any questions, they can ask you while we have you here.
Great, and I plan to stay through Rachel's presentation. I'm really excited to see all the activity you guys are doing. So what I wanted to start with, and I was looking at the slides, and first, basically I have a PowerPoint of kind of looking at Montezuma and regional data. And I'm going to go through these slides pretty quickly, but hopefully if you have any questions, I am happy to follow up with you afterwards, answer questions. But I wanted to give you kind of a taste of what the economy is looking like. And so on the first slide, it has employment by industry and wage. And what I'm going to do is I have some 2020 data, but because it's only February, unfortunately, we can't get a lot of 2020 data on a county level. It tends to take longer, more like the spring. So I'm using 2020 where I can, 2019 where we don't have that data. So in the slide on employment by industry and wage, what this shows is basically the jobs throughout the region. And I show it regionally because there's only 56,000 jobs in our whole 5-county area, which includes Montezuma. And it shows that government jobs are the most, but before everyone worries, we have a lot of federal jobs in our region. Forest Service, BLM, national parks, so that government shouldn't be as concerning as some people might make it out to be. And you'll see they're color-coded by where those wages fall. So for example, government tends to be mid-wage range. Obviously there's low and high wages in every industry, but this gives you kind of an idea. And obviously the second highest amount of jobs are in retail trade, which is a low wage jobs, you see accommodation, food services, healthcare, etc. And what you'll notice is at the bottom, some of our higher wage jobs tend to be the ones that we have the least amount of in our region. And then the next slide shows Montezuma and the breakdown. Sorry, I couldn't get the colors exactly the same. You'll see gray for the mid-wage jobs. And this shows that local government has the most jobs, health services, retail, trade, accommodation, etc. So it kind of gives you an idea of where we are just in Montezuma County. The next slide is percent of unemployment claims. And these are through October of 2020. And you see they're color-coded by county, because I think it's kind of important to see that Montezuma overall, yes, they had a lot of job loss, especially in accommodation and food services, but compared to the other counties, it was pretty in line. And of course, as you know, Montezuma and La Plata have the highest population base. So San Juan was really dramatically impacted, and you can kind of see that by the colors. What this also is unemployment claims. So we don't know how many of those unemployment claims now they're back at work, or how many may not have been accepted. But hopefully this gives you kind of an idea. And then we show Montezuma's in particular, and you'll see the job losses, almost 20% of our retail, trade, accommodation, and food services, and even healthcare. And healthcare, the ones that were impacted were things like massage therapy, some of our dental offices, things that really saw some mandatory closures for a while, even though they were in the medical field. And then you kind of can see the rest of those job numbers. And I hope I'm following this the same way I have it. I'm using paper so that I'm not scrolling. So then you see industry job growth forecast, and this is over the next few years what jobs we think are going to grow. And the ones that are highlighted in kind of an orange are our growth areas. And what you'll see with that is really that agriculture, forestry, fishing, hunting, those jobs are going to see some growth. We're seeing a lot in timber in Montezuma County. The education services can include anything from a charter school to a dance academy, so it's kind of a broad category. And I think I did skip my thumbs up slide, so I will mention that towards the end. I apologize about that, because that's important. Those are things we're doing well, and I should have started off on a good note. The next slide, and let me make sure I am tracking because I don't want to get these out of order. Okay, the next slide is basically the economy of Montezuma. So it's the base analysis. So what this is showing in Montezuma as a county, 73% are direct base. And what that means is money is coming in from outside the area, bringing new money into Montezuma. That is good. That's things like agriculture, if I sell my crops, nationwide and that money comes in. It's tourism, it's bringing new money in. It can be manufacturing where I sell my product and that money comes in. Local residential services, I want to mention, is 20%, and that is the one that we really need to take care of. Those are our, what I call our quality of life jobs. Those are our teachers, our law enforcement, our retail, and those are the ones that start getting compressed by our cost of living and also compressed by COVID, and I'll talk more about that. Let's see here. Okay, so the next picture is basically your economic development lesson. Think of the yellow as Mancos, or it can be Montezuma, and money comes into the community through these different things, which I will talk about, and it circulates within the economy. Residential services, again, you're going to the grocery store, your teachers, your law enforcement are spending money in the community. Indirect base are jobs that are directly related to money coming in, so tourism, that could be lodging, or if agriculture, it could be buying your tractor. So those indirect based jobs go away if you lose your money coming into the area based on what sector. And then of course, money is always leaking out every time you go down to Farmington and buy a car or you shop online. I won't give you my lesson around that or yell at anybody, but we all know that we leak our money out of our economy. The next chart is Region 9's direct base. On the right is the whole region, and on the left is just Montezuma. And I wanted to show you that because they're very comparable. We have a little less tourism in Montezuma, a little more household income, and a little more agribusiness. And I'm going to talk about what each of those are very quickly. Before I do that, I just want to show you that in all 5 of our counties and Region 9, that most of our jobs come from tourism or households. So only Dolores has a significant portion in agribusiness, which really is their second highest base industry. So tourism, this is what makes up tourism. The region again on the right and Montezuma on the left. Resorts are your destinations and they're your lodging. So Mesa Verde National Park, Durango Silverton Train, basically it can be rafting. It's things that are solely tourism based, that people really come here to do. Second homes is considered tourism because somebody has a primary residence outside of the community, they're considered a tourist. They bring money in primarily through the construction of their homes. The tourism services are anything from events that attract tourism, the Ute Mountain Ute Rodeo, things like that. And then transportation is basically airlines, auto rental, bus service. And the reason why Montezuma looks larger than the region is you have Cortez Cab, which is a regional cab provider and also serves La Plata County as Durango Cab, but they're based in Montezuma, so that income is in Montezuma. Regional services, and Heather, because I can't see everyone, if there's a burning question or a clarification, please just interrupt me, but I'm happy to answer questions afterwards. So regional services is basically activities that are not confined to one county. So obviously, education and healthcare. You have a community college. Not all of the income to the community college is from Montezuma. That's why it's a regional service, and that's almost 60%. Healthcare, obviously, Southwest Memorial is serving Dolores County. It's serving probably a lot of New Mexico residents as well. So that's kind of why it's in regional. Construction, and that's good. It means that your construction companies are doing work outside of Montezuma. Business services is an area you could grow. It would be things like engineering firms, architecture firms, you know, where they're actually working in other communities, but they're solely based in Montezuma. And then some of these are pretty self-evident: communications, finance, etc. I don't want to read them all to you. Household. So this again, I said, was a catch-all. So what you see, retirees are making up the jobs in this area of households. That would be basically the money they're bringing in through their retirement benefits, veteran benefits, you know, their 401ks, that type of thing. And that brings obviously jobs and money into the area. Transfer payments is public assistance. So that's your SNAP, food assistance, things like that. Now commuters, I wanted to just mention that because you see it's a -3. What that means, if you have more people coming into Montezuma County for work and living somewhere else, so they take that money home. And when we looked at those numbers, it's primarily 2 places. It's Shiprock and it's Dolores County. So you have a lot of residents from Dolores County that work in Montezuma, and they take their money home and they pay taxes in Dolores County, or they pay taxes in New Mexico. This isn't necessarily bad, but what we hope to see in a community is that it's a positive number, meaning more of Montezuma residents are working, say in La Plata, and bringing that money home, then that money's going out of the community. So we just kind of track that. And then agribusiness, no surprises here. Production is higher in Montezuma than the region. Processing is less because there's basically a meat processing plant in La Plata. And then inputs would be your seed, your fertilizer, those kinds of things. And trade is your warehousing, your transportation. I want to switch gears really quick and talk about money instead of jobs. What I really want to point out in this chart, what you see is blue is employment. Less than half or half of all of the income in our county is from people working jobs. The other half is from all these other sources. Transfer payments are basically the retirement benefits that are coming in. The dividends, interest, and rent is money sitting in your bank account. And then the residency adjustments are the commuters, whether you're earning money or losing money. But employment going down is really indicative of the fact that we're becoming a more retirement, recreational community where people aren't coming here to work. They're coming here to enjoy the amenities. And that does have some repercussions on our communities. Not necessarily all bad, but just something we need to be aware of. We really need to maintain, what did I say, our teachers, our law enforcement. Those are the folks that tend to have families, tend to have employment, tend to populate our schools, and we just are starting to get a little off balance. Okay, sorry all these retirees, nothing against it. Now, average wages versus livable wages. I just like to show our affordability. What average wages are is taking all of your incomes, the highest to the lowest, and averaging them by county across all industries. So what you see are the average annual wages in our region are a lot less than Colorado as a whole, which is $61,800. And then we look at Region 9 at livable wages. And those are, what does it take for someone to make it in a community? So it has nothing to do with what people are making. It's like, what do you need to make? And so we look at a basic budget, and it's done through the state of Colorado. You know, what's the average someone needs to spend on food, on clothing, on healthcare, on transportation? And then we localize it by housing prices, and we localize it by like childcare. So what you see is the adult, if I'm one adult and I'm living in, say, Montezuma County and I make $24,000, it's less than the average wage, but that's what I need to make it. That means I can survive in this community. And then what you see is as soon as I have a child, all of our communities are becoming unaffordable because you have to make more than even the average to be able to make it in the community. And what we do if we don't make that amount of money is we have to make undesirable choices. We're working more than one job, we may not have transportation, and we may be on public assistance. So that's something that we try to track over time, and if anyone is really interested in that, I'm happy to share that data. So now I want to just kind of throw out housing prices. We looked at what the median housing price was for 2020, and as you know, they're going up. So I'll just focus on Mancos. The median home price based on 63 sales is $352,700. And please know it's a median, that's the midpoint. But basically, that would be your housing cost. So if I'm gonna buy that house and I need to get a loan, and even with the low interest rates, let's say I have 3%, I'm putting 10% down, which is pretty standard, and I have a 30-year loan. I need to make $66,000 a year to even qualify for that loan. And what this shows is that you have almost 60% of your families that do not make that income. So right then you're showing that there is an ability of probably 2/3 of your population that cannot even buy a home based on these prices. And that's what I mean when we're compressing the parts of our community that we really want to keep. And those are the folks that are employed, working in our businesses. Sorry, this is very depressing, isn't it? Teacher salaries. I just am picking that out because that's close to my heart. This is the average teacher salary based on the Colorado Department of Education. Obviously, some teachers make more, some make less. And this is per school district. And then I threw in your median home price. And then I threw in the income needed to buy the home. And what we're showing is that no teacher can afford to buy a home in any of our communities if they are the sole provider for their family. So that's what I mean by our local residential services. The affordability factor is dramatically impacting our ability to keep our workers. And so what we see are declining enrollments because our families can't afford to be here, or we see a lot of lack of retention because they can't afford to live here. So that's kind of my point. And I will talk about thumbs up, I am so sorry. But basically thumbs down, no big surprises. Obviously broadband, thank you Mancos for your work in this area. You know, if nothing else, COVID showed us that we had issues and we can't send our kids home if they don't have access and then expect us all to, you know, be equal in terms of getting education. Climate change in terms of how it's impacting our recreation with wildfires, our ag with drought. Don't want to make any kind of political statements, but we, for the first time 2 years ago, closed down our public lands because of wildfire. That had never happened before. And that's something we're going to be dealing with kind of in the future, and we just need to keep that in mind and figure out how we are going to adjust. We have absolutely no drug treatment or recovery facilities for youth and adults. And obviously that makes other issues worse in our community. Our ability to keep people employed, our ability to reduce the number of homeless. So right now, if you are a child and you have any kind of mental health issue, you are taken to Grand Junction. So you can't even stay in the community. If you're an adult, there is a crisis unit in La Plata. But if you need treatment, you have to leave the community for any kind of residential treatment. And then if you come back, there's no transitional services, no sober living. And so it makes it a higher likelihood that you're not going to be successful. And so that's something we really need to look at as a region. And then finally, I keep kind of harping on the mid-wage workers and our affordability and how that's so important to our quality of life, because nobody wants to be in a community that's not a community. And then I am going to jump really quickly on our thumbs up. I can't believe I skipped that. But basically work in the timber industry is one of our thumbs up. That is growing, and that's starting to offset our oil and gas industry losses of jobs. We're also seeing the voter turnout. Holy cow. The whole region, we had either between 85% or 92% turnout in November. Phenomenal. Our census data numbers finally were above the 2020 numbers, and that was positive. And we're also exploring ways to reduce our health insurance costs for the region. And then we have a great grant that is going to be coming in to put in broadband in all of Dolores County and northern Montezuma County. So we are making some great strides. So I don't want to focus on all the negatives. And then I'm going to take a couple minutes just to tell you what we did in Montezuma County in 2020. And there's a performance report for you. So basically, we are regional, and we have 26 board members, and we have obviously Mancos, that is on our board, and we had in 2020 Craig Benally and then Queenie served in that position, and now we have Janice and we have Rachel Marchbanks who is serving in that position as well. So our board includes 17 government jurisdictions, including the 2 tribes, and then we also have 9 from the private sector that are geographically and industry diverse. So this just kind of gives you the list of who represented Montezuma, and we have some at-large members. We also have folks on our loan committee. Then we try to highlight some of our activities that we did just for you, so you feel like, you know, we're taking care of you and we're present. We do have a satellite office. We're reopening that in March. It was closed when we were in the red category. And we have weekly office hours. We will meet with folks in person. And of course, I was at the commissioner meeting yesterday. We're always in Montezuma County. So overall in the county, we responded to 308 inquiries, either for data or grants or research or just referrals. And that was up from 250 in 2019, so we do track those. Obviously, you may know we helped with the CARES funding that Mancos did, and we did that for all of the entities, the government entities in Montezuma. We also have been participating with the Montezuma Recovery Task Force meetings. We've been working closely with economic stakeholders. We've been starting to update our SEDS. We've been working really closely with Maggie and the Tri-County Chamber efforts to try to make sure that resources are promoted and out there. And of course, that's an easy one because Maggie does a great job with the Tri-County newsletter. We actually worked on a grocery feasibility study for the Ute Mountain Tribe. And then there's some other things. I'm sorry, I shouldn't start reading to you. And then regionally, we serve on a variety of boards to try to keep our hands in on certain areas of economic development, like the Southwest Workforce Board, the Community College, Fort Lewis College, things that can impact economic development. The Small Business Development Center we work closely with. And then regionally, we were able, because of COVID, to secure another $3.7 million to do for our loan fund. Our loan fund is our largest program. We right now have $6.2 million of loan assets. They're restricted, but we are able to provide microloans for startup businesses or help with gap financing to fill the capital stack. And we also work with the SCAPE program, the Southwest Colorado Accelerator Program, so we can do some equity financing for some of their businesses. We also worked with you guys on Rural Jumpstart, thank you. And we try to also help promote different incentives that are coming down from the state, and also what's local, and work with you on prospectuses if you're working with a business, you know, any way that we can help. We also work with the local economic development groups, Rachel, for example, and try to help any way we can, because we love having those boots on the ground. We love having folks that are working directly with the businesses, and whatever we can do to provide the resources or the connections, we're happy to do that. And I know Rachel was just on a call. We have a business that is trying to hire up to 1,400 remote workers in rural areas over the next, I think it's 2 years. And they want to do that in rural areas because then they get tax benefits. And we would love to have high-paying jobs where people can work from home here. So those are just some things we've been working on. Enterprise zones. Montezuma County is now enhanced, which means for new jobs created by businesses that are eligible for enterprise zone, which is all businesses, they can get $2,000 for every new employee that they hire and increase their FTEs. So in 2020, we received 94 inquiries just about enterprise zone from Montezuma County, and 148 businesses participated, and they were able to claim over $400,000 in their tax credits, and those businesses also created 165 jobs. So we were significantly down from the year before because it was almost 800,000 to 400,000, but obviously COVID did impact that, and we look forward to changing direction this year. And then contribution projects, those are nonprofits that fit an economic development lens, and there's a real narrow eligibility criteria. But these are Montezuma nonprofits that if you make a donation, you can get a tax credit. So we raised over $2 million for those nonprofits this year. And I'm going to conclude with just our loan program. This is public information of who we give loans to and the amount that we give them. Other than that, we can't tell you whether they're paying or not, or anything like that. But you'll see we had a lot of new loan activity, and we have some loans that are within Mancos, and I may have gotten a couple wrong. I know the Mancos city limits piece, and Mancos Brewing is outside. I know that, but it's close enough. And it has your name, so, So anyway, I did want to just share that with you. And I will stop and see if we have any questions. I overwhelmed you. I know I did.
Cindy has a question.
Yeah, hi, I'm Cindy, voice in the ceiling. I was wondering on the unemployment numbers, do those numbers include all the fraudulent claims, or are they somehow able to remove the fraudulent claims from those numbers? Because that's a known thing, and I just want to make sure that we're looking at real numbers, not inflated numbers due to fraud.
Good question. So that was through October. So my thought would be fraudulent claims. They were saying, sorry, they, meaning the state office of labor and employment, they said that really all the unemployment claims started in March, and it took them at least 3 months to start, just with the process and figuring out what might be fraudulent and all of that. So through October, I would say there's probably some fraudulent claims in there, maybe for the fall, but as they clear those up, they remove them from the data.
Okay.
I can't tell you how many, you know, I didn't look into that.
Okay.
Any other questions on the board? Well, thank you, Laura, for presenting that a lot of information, and it looks like you guys have done a lot of hard work, and thank you for supporting our businesses.
And thank you for supporting Region 9. We greatly appreciate it. It's wonderful working with all the town staff.
And Laura, I posted your presentation on our website in the board packet, and that will stay on the website. So I don't know if as we move forward and people hear about the presentation and go to the website to look at it and that kind of thing, I don't know if you'll get any questions, but I will leave the information posted with the packet on our website, just for anybody who might want to look at it, just so you know.
Great, thank you. And we'll be ready for that. I appreciate it. And I will also be sending out our corporate annual report for distribution to the trustees as well. We just did our overall regional corporate annual report.
All right, moving right along then. The next thing on the agenda is our discussion and action items. The first one is the past Mesa Verde update.
Yes, and I'm actually going to look and see if I didn't know if James Dietrich from the county was going to try to attend, because he's actually been the lead on this project since it started in 2016. He has been amazing, as you can tell by the staff report, in securing the grants and keeping it moving. And I know it seems like it's been lasting forever, but so I will do my best to walk us through this project. Started in 2016 as part of the governor's Colorado the Beautiful, one of their 2016 and 2016 projects. So to date, we have completed 20% of the design, and this is just for the Mancos to Mesa Verde portion. We have completed 20% of the design. The total cost for that was $500,000. The town of Mancos contributed $20,000 to that portion of it. So moving forward, we need to finalize design and construct 8.1 miles of trail from here to Mesa Verde. The balance of the project is estimated to cost a little over $5.8 million. We do have a Goco Grant, and when I say we, I mean Montezuma County and Mancos, because he'll apply for grants, I'll apply for grants, so we're not competing for the same grant for the same project. So there is a Goco Grant in the amount of $193,350. There is a DOLA planning grant in the amount of $25,000, and I see that I did not include that in my staff report, so I apologize. And then Montezuma County is in the process of getting an additional $5.7 million grant to finish the project. So, with all of the different funding options and that kind of thing, basically what it boils down to is the total cash match for this project to complete the project is $786,650. And what we're here tonight to talk about is, do we want to agree to a 50-50 split? The original agreement was 20/80 for design. There was never discussion about construction split. If we agree to a 50-50 split, it's $393,000 over the next 5 years. This has to come from the general fund. It doesn't come from water or sewer or anything. Can't even come from Conservation Trust Fund, because we will not own the land. It's all in most of it, 90% of it is in CDOT right of way. So the money would have to come from the general fund. And $393,000 is the worst case scenario. We're not going to stop looking for grants. We're not going to stop applying for grants, but we have potentially, if we don't get any more, we will be paying $393,000 over the next 5 years. I did speak with James a little bit on this project, and he gave me kind of some talking points that he wanted you guys to be aware of in case he couldn't come tonight. There has been, over the years, much discussion about this surface of the trail. Is it concrete? Is it gravel? Is it crusher fine? Is it asphalt? You know, what do we want it to look like? This project and this budget today includes crusher fine. And in our opinion, it's actually a better surface because it lends itself more to walking and hiking, more multi-use, which includes horses, and that's something that we've talked about several times over the last couple of years. And when this trail was when we originally started talking about this in 2016 or 2017, it was very much a multi-use, which included horses, which was important to Mancos. But the private right-of-ways that we were attempting to obtain, the property owners didn't want to give them up. So the trail was moved to the CDOT right-of-way, which is along the highway. Now, nothing will say that horses cannot use it, but it will be up to them if they choose to use it. So crusher fine is still a better option, I think, than concrete or asphalt at this point, because if they choose to use it, they're not walking on concrete. The county itself doesn't have a sales tax, so like James said, they don't have a lot to gain from this as far as tourism dollars. And we, with a complete, from beginning to end, $980,000 grant match, we're leveraging almost $5 million in grant funds. So that's the short version of the 5-year project. And so I guess I need a little bit of feedback from you guys, because they have not signed and accepted that $5.7 million grant until or unless they know where we want to go. Now they are also, James is working, you know, they're still working on the Cortez side, but that's almost like a separate, it's very separate from this. This information, these dollars, this trail is from Mancos to Mesa Verde. So.
And I know it sounds like a lot of money, you know, $393,000. But if we don't do this, we're going to be sitting here 5 years from now and going, well, what if we were better back then? Because 5 years down the road is going to be $839,000. So, you know, I mean, that's $58,000, almost $59,000 a year for 5 years. But I can just see us sitting on our hands and not doing anything, and 5 years going, gee, I wish we'd have done that. Or the next board kicking us because we didn't do something. So that's just my opinion to think about. So Cindy, I'm going to...
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One, well, a statement. It comes out to about $78,700 a year. So one question is, do we have that room in our budget without squeezing? And two, can we commit future boards to, because you know some of us aren't going to be around in 5 years, so can we commit future boards to that? Like, are we allowed to do it, and do we have the money to do it in this worst case scenario?
So I'll take the money issue, and then David, you can take the legal issue, okay? $78,000 a year for 5 years will be doable, but that 5-year capital plan and the paving and that kind of stuff, some of that will take second place, if it happens at all. Because again, it's the general fund. We can't take out loans, we can't increase taxes, we can't increase mill levies, we can't increase sales tax, we can't do any of that unless we go to a vote. Now, nothing says that we can't prepare for that and potentially do that. However, I can't give a ton of detail on that. That's a ton of research. There's public outreach. You know what I'm saying? So $78,000 a year in our general fund will, it'll be a tight squeeze. and we will be postponing or canceling altogether other capital projects. Yes.
Let me let David answer that legal question. Can you answer that the legality question that Cindy asked, David?
I couldn't quite catch what you said there last, Mayor, but I did hear Heather ask like what I thought about this from a legal perspective. You know, the town is under the Taxpayer Bill of Rights required not to enter into a multi-year financial obligation, say a 5-year obligation, without present cash reserves, without an election on the issue. And so we would just have to structure it so that it is subject to annual appropriation. If there's, if we're really just committing this 1 year, and we'll re-examine each year following, that could work. Another option might be just having to have those funds tied up in the budget for the full period.
So you're saying budget $393,000 next year, kind of? Is that what you're saying with that last statement?
Yes, I'd want to double check that. You know, just look at table again with respect to these specifics. But yeah, I think that would work.
Okay.
You know, I think that we can rightly make the claim that having a path would bring a certain amount of money into the valley. Having a little trouble wrapping my head around, even at 6% sales tax, $78,000 a year coming in here. There's a lot of things that this town needs to do. I think one thing that we could consider, and I don't know how strongly we could push on this, but would make it a ballot issue. And then we could let the citizens decide what they want to do.
A ballot issue for 2022, April of 2022 is our next election?
Could be.
Janice, do you have any comments or questions?
I just want to listen, and then I might.
Betsy?
One question that just follows on what Fred said is the 5.7 million awarded?
It's my understanding that it has been awarded, it has not been signed and accepted.
So, I mean, if we went to an election in April of 2022, I mean, that would, it seems to me they're going to have to sign and accept this 5.7 million well before that.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to do it. It's, I can't remember his exact date, but I will tell you it's definitely within the next 2 to 3 weeks, 30 days.
Yeah. And they're waiting for our decision to do that.
Correct.
Okay, can I ask a couple more questions? One is just in the report here, it indicates that there's some portion of the trail that's not on CDOT land. Correct. And we don't have easements for it. So what do we do with that?
We have easements for the entire section from Mancos to Mesa Verde.
We do.
Yes.
It's all CDOT.
Yeah, it's all CDOT.
Oh,
yeah.
It's
or it's town or it's CDOT. We could not get easements on private property on this side of the mountain. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I apologize for not being.
And then the other thing I'm really thinking about is, because of course I wasn't part of the original discussion, it's a lot of money.
Yes.
You know, and it's, and like you say, it's going to be tight for us. What was the original thought about justifying that expenditure? And then going along with that was, it seemed to me when I heard about it originally that it was not going to be near the highway. And does that make moving it closer to the highway so that we have CDOT land, does that make it less attractive and therefore
less profitable?
So to answer your first question, I also inherited this project.
Yeah.
I was here, I was peripherally around, I was at board meetings, you know, that kind of thing, but there was not, to my recollection, a lot of discussion as to how are we going to fund the project as a whole. There was, oh, we can do design and Mancos pays 20%. That there wasn't a lot of discussion about the construction aspect of the project. There was, and the reason for the design agreement, the 80-20 split, was that in the town of Mancos, the trail it stops at our town limits. After that, it's in the county. So that was the original reason for the 80-20 and why we only paid $20,000 for 20% design. Why we didn't pay half. But as far as how are we going to do the project as a whole, not a lot of discussion about that in 2016 or 2017. And with regard to moving it, you are correct. The original conceptual plan did include all private easements off of the highway. However, they were unable to obtain any private property owner agreement for trail easements, so it was moved into the CDOT right-of-way. There has been, to my knowledge, no discussion about is it less attractive or more attractive. It was, this is our only option, that's where we're going. So.
And how did we get from 80-20 to 50-50? I was surprised to hear that. So I do not know that, because what triggered this for me is I reached out to James after the workshop, the joint workshop that we had, when Commissioner Candelaria said, oh, it's a 50-50 split. So the next day I came into the office and reached out because I had not heard that before our workshop. So I don't know how the 50-50 split came along. I don't know if the commissioners maybe talked about it, but that's why I need to bring this to you, because 50-50 was not part of the original discussion.
Joe, can you?
Well,
Sorry, Joel, to put you right on the
spot.
We need an inheritance tax.
Yeah.
Will you go to the microphone,
Yeah,
Joel?
so
Thank you.
And I don't want to put anybody on the spot.
I'm not
Because
putting you on the spot.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
James is going to come to the next meeting with me. I didn't know anything about this here tonight, but he's going to be here for the RS 2477 discussion and stuff. But the deal on this, what I've heard is they wanted to do a 50-50 split with you folks on this side, and then we're doing a 50-50 split with Cortez on the other side. And like I say, the county has nothing to gain out of this at all. This is more of a kind of a community deal of working with the town of Mancos, working with the town of Cortez, just trying to bring something together so that we're all working together on stuff. I do believe that this is a very good project. We're in competition with Moab, we're in competition with Durango for tourists, and this is a big thing that's coming to us. Phil's World is one of the world's best biking deals, and eventually this is going to be something we're going to be glad we've done it. The original right-of-way, as I understood it, they were going to try to follow the Mesa Verde pipeline, is what they wanted to do. But like I said, it goes through all private land all the way out there, and the private landowners said no way. The easement in CDOT here is a large easement. It's the trail, I believe, is going to be way off the highway, because you know, once you get to Mud Creek out to Mesa Verde, where I live there's almost 100 yards from the highway down to the private property line. So it's going to be away from the highway. It's not going to be something that's run right on the highway.
Well, the bikes are riding right on the highway right now.
Yeah, and it would be a good safety deal too, yes, to get them off the highway. But I think, and James, he feels like for the county that we can get enough grants to cover pretty much cover the cost of this thing. Because the county doesn't have the money to invest in a private deal like this. We can't ask our taxpayers to fund something like this when we're getting no return out of this at all. So that's kind of where as I see it, that's kind of where we stand.
Correct.
But I know James is going to come to the next meeting with me to talk about some of that stuff, and if you wanted to table some of this stuff until, because James he knows every ins and outs of this, the financial, everything, so.
Okay, here's my concern. I've been involved in the pedestrian crossing and planning for the Main Street Bridge. And in both examples there, working with CDOT has been an absolute nightmare. And the delays for years has really pushed the cost up. So we're looking at a 5-year plan here, and just playing the basic odds, we're looking at a 10-year plan when CDOT finally gets to it and signs all the forms and stuff. So I think that more than looking at this number, we have to at least double this number to take into account what the bureaucracy is going to do to us with this project. And sorry to be harsh here, but we have 2 projects in town that have really affected this little town and has caused us to really increase our costs.
Brent, do you have any comments or questions?
Okay, yeah, I do. So, going off the numbers that Cindy had said of about $78,000 a year spread over 5 years, to recoup at 6% for sales tax.
4%. We have a 4%.
Or 4%. Then it would be even more. We would have to do at 6% with 1.3 million to recoup each year's worth of what we were paying in for that. So for over 5 years, we would have to do, to get $78,000 a year back at 6%, it was 1.3, so it's going to be closer to 1.5 million.
But that's only based on sales tax.
That's based on sales tax.
There's no lodger's tax.
It's not lodger's tax, and that's,
We
well, we don't get
receive
lodger's tax.
The town
The
doesn't.
town doesn't get it, so,
Right.
so I mean,
The county does.
yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, that's a large amount to that would just to recoup over 5 years. We would have to recoup almost a $1.5 million amount to justify doing this. And you know, I know we spent some money on this already, but I just don't know if there's going to. It's a great idea. I think it's a great idea to connect the communities, and I've lived in other communities that have done this in the past. But everybody promises that it's going to be this huge economic gain, and it never equates to that, is my fear. That I just don't want to be throwing money at something that, like Fred said, might take 10 years to come to fruition and cost even more than what we're anticipating.
But I think if we wait 5 years to make the decision to do the 50-50, but then it's going to be it's going to be tripled.
I understand that, and I get where you're coming from with that, because we want to be forward thinking here. We want to plan for the future. I just don't know if this thing's ever going to get to the point where it's going to bring enough back to justify the amount of money we may have to spend on this. And that's speaking from a business owner's perspective too. So, you know, I would love for this to be everything that has been sold to the community so far as a great economic driver of the community. I just don't know if we want to put some of our projects, of our taxpayers' money, on the line for something that may not actually come to fruition for a decade, and it may never become what people want it to be. That's my deal with it.
Janice?
I like what the discussion so far is. The So there's no way you can get more like grants, or is there a way to get a bond levies, or you said no, but.
Well, we'll continue to apply for grants as they become available. There's no guarantee. So our $393,000 match is our worst case scenario. So yes, we'll continue to apply. I can't promise that we'll get more grants, because we've also been working on this for 5 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it won't stop us from applying.
Right.
I don't know if we'll get them.
Okay.
And as far as like a mill levy, a bond, a sales tax, even something temporary for 5 years or 7 years or 10 years, whatever, there's absolutely a way to do that. I don't know that the timeline for the $5.7 million grant allows that.
Oh, okay.
And I would have to do, off the top of my head, I do not have my 2022 election calendar started yet. We would have to, I do know that we would have to have the board pass an ordinance by, I believe it's December or January. The election laws have changed a little bit in the last year. So possibly December or January. I would need to get started on that now, because we have legal counsel who has to review that. The other thing is, if you are going to ask the town of Mancos citizens for an increase in taxes, that is going to take public outreach, public education. We're going to have to research how much do we need, how can we get it, is it a property tax, is it a sales tax, when will it sunset, if ever. I mean, so it can be done, but not something as simple as I can table this to the next meeting and bring you solid information. So.
I'd like to amend my numbers. It would be $1,950,000 at 4% to gain back $78,000 in tax revenue. It would be $1,950,000 a year at 4% to gain back $78,000 a year in taxpayer money.
And in 2020, unaudited, because they haven't done our audit yet, we pulled in, I believe, $1,093,000 in sales tax, somewhere in that area.
So we'd have to triple our sales tax. Triple. I mean, it would have to be triple the amount of what our revenue has been previously to even get us to the point where we're breaking even to pay back what we're putting forward. I just don't see that happening. Like, I don't know what type of project we could bring here that would ever do anything like that.
How much do we have in our reserves?
We had, unaudited, in 2020, 1.6, 1.9.
And about how much are we required to have based on our budget? Because I know there's like a percentage.
We're only required to have 3% of our operating budget in reserves according to state budget law.
Yeah.
The town has financial policies that requires quite a bit more than that.
Okay.
And that 1.6 or 1.9, we spent $309,000 on a building. I don't know what my construction bids are for the Main Street Bridge project. However, I will know that by the next board meeting. And there are things, I mean, there are places that we can cut. I think that we could, I hate to say this without checking with our auditor. You guys know how how cheap I am. But
pending audit.
Yes. I could always reach out to our auditor and say, can we afford $393,000 out of reserves in 2022? We budgeted, we're done with it. I can look into that. In my time here, from beginning till now, Our reserves have gotten as low as 600,000. I would not be comfortable with that. But I could reach out to our auditor and see if he thinks that we can absorb another 393 out of reserves, with the understanding that we would do nothing else in the general fund next year. So,
you know, since I've been involved in the planning of this, it's morphed into, from what was going to be a multi-purpose trail going through private land with the horse people's backing, to primarily a bicycle trail. I hate to think what's going to happen in the next 5, 7, 10 years to change this project even more. Let's go back to the planning phase, where CDOT has driven the trail right down Grand Avenue, which is going to totally take out the parking on the north side of Grand Avenue from Bird Park past the school and all the way to 160. Really don't know how that's going to work. That's going to be an unusual problem to face, and I think that there's going to be some changes in that one also.
now they did guarantee that,
as they always do.
I was just going to say, they did guarantee that we would not lose the parking on Grand. Because I will say, that was my first introduction to this project, was the meeting here with like 18 engineers. And when I heard that, I said, it's not even an option. You cannot remove parking on Grand Avenue. It's not even an option, figure something else out. So they're gonna, according to them, there will still be parking on Grand, and then the trail is gonna run along the north side, but outside of the parking spots. That is the current.
We can't get folks to not park in Brent's yard. So I don't know how you're going to put a bike trail through there.
That's where it is right now. So.
What's the timing on the application? Like, do we have to make a decision tonight? Can we wait until our next meeting?
I don't know that, like I said, James told me that he needed a decision tonight. So maybe there's some confusion. If he's planning on coming to the next meeting.
And I would love for you folks to hear James do this, because James has been involved in this thing from day one. And the county we're not going to put any taxpayer money except for what our match is to the grants to do this project, because it would be unfair to our people to spend their tax dollars on something that we can't recoup for them. But James has got this deal worked out where he believes that it's all we're going to do is have to do the matching on the grants to get this whole project done. And I would really like for you folks to hear from James.
And then there's nothing we can do tonight.
I would like to see you not vote it down, but just at least table it till we can let James talk to you.
I'll reach out to him tomorrow again, because like I said, he was supposed to come tonight.
Well, that might have been my fault, because
No, we talked, him and I talked separately, and I sent him the Zoom meeting info. So I will, I'll reach out to him tomorrow if you guys want to table it. I have the same concern as Commissioner Stevenson. I think this is a project that is important. I think we won't be able to do it in 5 years. I'm having a hard time, the same concerns. We have a mile of trail out of 8.1 miles, but we're being asked to pay 50% of the cost. And how do we justify that to our taxpayers?
Right.
So it's difficult. It's a tough project. We will, I think, lose our window. So, but it's a lot of money. So,
I don't want to make a decision hastily if it's a timing thing that we might lose a window for funding. That I don't necessarily want to have that gun held to our head to make a decision, make a bad decision.
Right.
So, I think we can table it for now and try to talk to James in the next week or so and see if we can.
I will talk to him tomorrow and say, can you or will you commit to the next meeting? And we'll go.
Well, and assuming the deadline isn't tomorrow or
Yeah.
Friday, we could even be convened in a special meeting.
We could do that.
We can do it by Zoom if we can't all physically be here. So assuming we're not going to lose $5.7 million in grants if we just wait a couple of days, you know, maybe that's the way to go. I think it's a really valid project. I'm excited by the idea, and I'm not even really a trail user. I know it surprises everyone. But I'm sure you're shocked I'm not out on the runner. But I've seen in other communities where family members of mine have lived, and I've seen what's happened when they've had big trail projects like Rails to Trails, you know, where they take old railroad beds and they turn them into trails, and everybody, I don't want it in my backyard, all this kind of stuff. And it has been such a huge boon to the towns, especially the towns at the terminus, where people are going to be for a while, you know, as they get ready to go on the trail, as they come back from the trail. They're going to want to eat, they're going to want to drink. So I see that it's of a huge benefit to our town. I do share the don't tell anyone, but I do share the concern that these things do tend to stretch out. For those of you who don't know, I work for CDOT, so ouch, but you know, valid.
They didn't move, so that's okay.
Not my department. But things do tend to stretch out, and so I guess if we can wait, maybe convene a special meeting if we need to because of the timing, and then maybe even for raising our comfort level, figure out if we can, what happened to the 80-20?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then maybe actually, if we are going to move forward with some sort of recommendation to approve, maybe it's one of those where it's, you know, not to exceed $400,000 over the next 5 years without further review and approval by whatever board is sitting at the time. You know, some kind of thing like that, where we're supporting it, but we're supporting a finite amount of money that would allow a little bit of leeway in case it gets delayed by, you know, a couple months. So maybe that as a.
And I will, oh, sorry, Betsy. I'll reach out to James. He's phenomenal on this project. He's done so much work. He understands everything in and out. So he is going to be of benefit to you guys, and he can answer all of the questions that you all have asked very eloquently and with actual information. So I will reach out to him and make sure that he can come to the next meeting or special meeting or whatever. Yes.
Yes. The other thing I would think before, reach out to him and reach out to our accountant.
Oh yes, absolutely. I will be calling him first.
And have that information for us, because I just don't want us to be penny wise and pound foolish.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I think this could be just a very, very exciting thing for the town.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we have to balance it and not jeopardize the people who live here. You know, financially, with, you know, having to cut other projects that turn out to be essential while we're waiting for the 10 years to elapse.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'd sure like to pursue it if we can, get some answers. If there's any negotiation about the 80-20, and I'm certainly up for a special meeting if we have to do it.
Yeah.
With regard to the 5.7 million.
I will absolutely do that. The 80-20 negotiation should be between board and commissioner, I think. Because ultimately, you guys are the ones who are going to be authorizing the project. So let me do I'll reach out to our auditor, I'll reach out to James, and then express the concerns, and he's very aware of what his commission requires. So if he is comfortable coming and talking to you guys and answering those questions, then we'll do that. If he feels that he needs to talk to his bosses, then we will convene a special meeting with everybody together kind of thing. And if he thinks it can wait until the next meeting, then we'll wait until the next meeting. But I'll reach out to him and we'll figure out kind of those logistics.
And I just have one kind of further statement. I think that, you know, in terms of, oh, we don't have sales tax in the county, so this isn't going to benefit us. I think it may not affect or improve the county in the first round of money coming in, but definitely, you know, if our businesses are making more money, and, you know, some people live out in the county, which means they're able to afford better housing, you know, so I think there are positive impacts for the county at large, that I want to make sure that when we do have these discussions, we don't forget that, you know, the longer, as Laura said tonight, the longer we can keep money circulating in our community, the better off we are for everybody. And so if we have this trail, you know, it's going to pull money in from outside our community. It can swirl around in our community, and everybody's going to benefit. You know, county, town. I really think it's going to be an excellent thing for our town. We just have to figure out, can we afford it?
Can we afford it?
And I hate to wait for 5 or 10 years and then start and then realize, okay, now we have to pony up $1 million. You know, so.
I'm just wondering if Mesa Verde would be interested. That's a question for James, like if he's reached out to them, like they kind of benefit because all roads lead to them, so they might.
That's worse than dealing with CDOT.
Oh.
CDOT's state, Mesa Verde is federal.
That's a
but
whole
you know what?
other level
We will
of
have.
bureaucracy.
We will have.
And any of those Goco grants?
Goco?
Yeah.
We have a Goco grant for this project already, so I don't know if we're eligible for
another one. Okay. All right. We're going to table this then, right?
Yes.
And then we'll
I think
get
that's
back.
the
Okay.
consensus to table it.
Yeah.
Yep, I'll reach out to James, reach out to the auditor, do some research, and then work with you guys to either put it on the agenda for the next meeting, or work to schedule a special meeting if that's what
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I'll do that.
So expensive. Why is it so expensive?
So the next thing on the agenda is the Relocation Guide sponsorship. And Maggie, are you with us? Yes?
Yes, I'm here on Zoom. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Is that a yes?
Yes, we can hear you.
That's a yes, Maggie. Go ahead.
Okay. Maggie Cadell, and I'm representing the Tri-Chamber on a project we're working on for doing a Montezuma County relocation guide. We have not had a relocation guide for our area in quite a few years. There is a real estate guide, but it's more of it covers La Plata County, and we really wanted to aim at Montezuma. We figured this is the best time to do it right now. Some of the advantages to a relocation guide is to attract more diverse businesses to our area, give more information to potential homeowners and business owners to make an educated decision on whether to move or open a business here. We want to have it as part of a reference toolkit to push economic development and get us on par with other communities that offer relocation guides. Most of the areas around here do have relocation guides, and the idea has been tabled a few times, and we're pushing for it. We received, I want to thank, by the way, Laura Lewis Moschino. Region 9 has helped us get some seed money to get started with this project. Thank you, Laura. And a lot of what she said feeds into the relocation guide. We're looking at jobs, how to provide more diverse businesses, how to attract the place, how to have something that tells people this is a great place to open a business, this is a great place to move. We have our retiree population is large. We want to continue to bring people in, or even better, bring people back. Our graduates, often when people graduate from high school and college here, they move away for jobs. We want to have the opportunity for people to come back, bring their families with them, have job opportunities here, bring businesses with them. There's, with COVID, I think we have a big opening. People who can work remote are now looking at other places to live. Let's bring our children back to Mancos, back to Montezuma County, and provide some more jobs, some more money coming into the area, keeping our schools active with young families. All really important for our economic development to continue with this. I sent over the full relocation guide information, but I don't know if you have all of it. We are offering sponsorships right now. Well, I'm going to back up. Right now, our relocation guide is going to be finished as a PDF by the end of March. That would be basic. People could look at it, people could print it out. We want to move to a flip version online that people can look at the full pages. They can flip through it like you would a magazine. This could be, we'd have a master one and it could be embedded on a variety of different websites. So one guide, and we could put it all over Montezuma County. Anybody who's looking at Cortez would see Mancos, would see Cortez, would see Dolores. Each town will have their own page with demographic information. I want information about the school systems, everything people need to know about whether this community fits what they're looking for. We're talking on sponsorships. We have 3 sponsorship levels. The top one is $10,000. We have a middle sponsorship of $5,000 and a lower sponsorship of $3,000. I don't want to go into a great amount of detail. I'm assuming you have this paperwork breaking down the sponsorship things, and I know that you have a whole bunch of people coming in after me.
Maggie,
so
Maggie, can we hold you just a minute? Heather needs to mention something.
Hey Maggie, you said you sent it over?
Yes. It should look something like this.
I didn't get anything in my email, and I asked Rachel, and she doesn't have anything in hers. What I have and what I can pass around to them is the...
I know you have a sponsorship sheet because I gave you that in our last meeting.
Yeah, I can give them that if that's still accurate, and they can pass that around.
That's still accurate.
Okay.
I'll double check my emails, but I thought I'd sent over the entire little introduction here.
That's okay. I've given them the relocation. I've given them the info from our last meeting.
Okay.
So they have that.
Do you have any questions that I can answer? I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just want to answer what you need to know.
Maggie, when do we need to know, when do we need to take action?
I don't have a set deadline. Right now we're doing this, like I said, the PDF version will be done by the end of March. Before we need sponsorships because we need the money to pay for things like a website, the flip version. There's going to be some costs involved in that. And if everything goes right, we are looking at maybe doing a print version in 2022. Right now, we're just looking at getting the basic flip version up on the line. So I'm looking at probably we would need to know by the end of March, so that we could move to the next step of getting our guide online.
Thank you.
That would give you about 30 days. Any other questions?
I think some of them are still reading your info.
Okay.
But we could get the full
package that she said she was
Yes,
sent over and then have a conversation at the next meeting.
We can do that at the next meeting, absolutely.
I have it sent. I can send it again.
Okay.
This is, it's a big project, but we have some good people helping us with it. CREA, the Colorado Cortez Retail Enhancement Association, is helping. Kelly Kirkpatrick with Mesa Verde Country is going to help us with the what to do when you move here kind of things. I'm talking about hiking trails and quality of life and things. We're aiming I'm sorry, it's been a long day. We're aiming at getting this out, like I said, as soon as possible, because we think that now is the time to strike, when people are looking at reconnecting with their families, looking at finding a different place to live, getting some new businesses to the area. A lot of the things that Laura has said really leads into this relocation guide, and I will send over the full package so you'll have all the details that I have right here to flip over, and we can discuss it at a different meeting then.
I will, and in the meantime, Maggie, I will scan in the information that they're looking at right now, and I will email it so they have that as well.
Okay. Let me see if I, I thought I had emailed that over. I do apologize for that. I assumed you'd have it all. Any questions? And otherwise, I'll just move on.
Greg has a question. 1 second.
I like the idea of the relocation guide, and I liked it the last couple of times that they had talked about it at different meetings. And my only fear is that when we start including all these different entities, the time frame is going to get pushed back on it. So I just wanted to make sure that, you know, like you said, let's strike while the iron is hot. So I just want to make sure that this does get out there in a timely manner before the summer months.
The goal, we've already started on the relocation guide. The goal is to have a PDF version by March 31st. And I see no reason why we shouldn't meet that. We have most of the information. Right now we're looking at is getting sponsorship so we can move from a PDF, which is a fairly basic guide. People could still look at it online, but it's not as fancy. We want to have a full guide that's online and that people can visit. You can have it embedded in your website, like we would have it on the Mancos Chamber website, the Dolores website, the Cortez website. We've been talking to the Board of Realtors. So people can access this guide from a lot of different locations and have all the same information. It really unites the community, because wherever they're coming from, they're going to find the same information there. We're going to be marketing the same area the same way. Mancos won't look like one place on one site and one place on the other. It's all going to be very unified. And it's really a lot of places. We've been talking to some of the other, like Pagosa Springs and things like that, about their relocation guides, and they're having really good luck with the ones online. They're beautiful, and it's a more cost-effective version, and we can get it up quickly. That's why we wanted to do the online version as soon as possible. If we can have the PDF by the end of March, and then we can get some funds in to have the online version as early as possible. Personally, I'd like to have it by May. And then that gives us an opportunity to tweak and work with it for the rest of the year. And if we want to approach a printed version in 2022, we can, but we will have a version up that people can look at this year. It's not a long-term thing. We're going to have the PDF version by the end of March, and the flip version as soon as we have all of our funding and ducks in the row to get it up on the website. Is that
Denise?
Yeah, hey, Maggie, it's Janice. And are you asking us, the town, for money?
We're asking the town for sponsorship.
Yeah.
We have 3 sponsorship levels. It's in the paperwork. So we're asking Town of Mancos, we're asking Town of Dolores, we're asking Montezuma County, we're asking City of Cortez, we're talking to the Board of Realtors, we've talked to Region 9, and I think they've talked about sponsorship, and I think we have another person online that, until I know that they're committed, I'm not going to say yes, they're committed. The sponsorship helps us get this up and running, and then we're going to look at advertisement to make it self-sustaining after this point, but we do need some upfront funds to do the website, to pay for the, you know, all the logistics it's going to take to finish building a solid one.
Okay, thank you.
So Heather, would they qualify for the agency contributions?
Yes, they're a nonprofit, yes.
So they could apply for the agency contributions, and that way we wouldn't have to,
That's right.
we wouldn't have to take money out, and that's a discussion later on.
Yes.
Okay.
The agency contribution cap is $1,500 though.
Right.
Oh, yeah. She's asking for a lot more, but that's okay.
So do you need an answer tonight?
No.
No. Okay.
I'll put this on the next agenda, Maggie, and then I'll follow up with you for the complete packet, and then I'll make sure that it gets in the next board packet as well.
That sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you, Heather.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Queenie.
Okay.
Okay, moving right along is the 2021 Economic Development Plan.
And Rachel Marchbanks is here. She's our Economic Development Coordinator. She's an independent contractor. She's not a staff member, so just to kind of refresh everybody's memory, but we did work together, and I'll kick it off, and then if you have any questions, we can tag team it. But we did work together on an economic development work plan for this year, and if you all remember, how we got an economic development coordinator is through a Ready Grant. We hired RPI. They conducted a strategic plan for economic development for the town. They held public meetings and public input, and then drafted a strategic plan for us. Part of that grant application was our commitment to hiring an economic development coordinator and then working the strategic plan. So Rachel and I worked to review the strategic plan, pick out the items that were the most important, we think, for 2021. She started here in April of 2020 last year, but spent so much time working with Laura and Maggie, economic recovery, keeping people here, doing what we could. So this year we're still working on that. There's still a need for it, but shifting focus to include actual economic development, working that strategic plan, doing the items that we need to do. So her work plan looks like the staff work plans that you receive every quarter. And once we get through this topic tonight, I will just put this at the back of the staff work plan every quarter so you can see kind of where we're going with it. Because it's a new position for the town, because it's a new project for the town, especially this first year, we want to make sure that we are going in the direction that the board wants us to go. So I don't know if you all have any questions for Rachel or for me, but we put that in there for you.
I don't have any questions. I think it's pretty clear, and it'll keep Rachel busy this year.
And I think you're spot on the things that you've listed, so yeah, thank you.
Does anybody else have any? We will move right along to the economic development incentive discussion.
Okay, this one will be a little bit more in-depth, and Rachel will probably be able to answer more questions for you guys. And we have Laura Lewis, Moschino from Region 9. And I don't know if Maggie's still on, so it's very timely tonight. But at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, the board at the time had several workshops to discuss economic development incentives. We wanted to draft a package of incentives for new and existing businesses that will help those businesses either start here, grow here, be successful here. And then we had our March workshop, and then COVID sidelined the entire project. So Rachel reviewed all that information and has been circling back around to that. And we are here with a draft of not just economic development incentives, such as like facade grants and sign permit waivers, but also economic development fee abatement, like what fees or taxes or something will we rebate back to those businesses and for what amount of time. And so we'll take it in kind of sections, because then at the end, we also, again, have some questions to make sure we're moving in the right direction, because this discussion started with a different board. Some of these board members were not there. So the first part of this is incentives, facade grant, landscaping beautification grants, sign permit waivers. We did at one time for 1 year offer facade grants, beautification grants, and permit waivers. We still offer sidewalk cost share matching and hazardous tree removal matching programs. So in this packet, we included the facade and beautification grant information from before and the sidewalk information to see if that is something the board wants to start up again. It's very simple. They were micro grants, I think $500. And it's these things we can do relatively simply, and we can implement them quickly. So that's why we kind of broke them out a little bit for you guys, to get a little bit of feedback on what do you think about that section of the incentives, or those incentives. Yes?
Do we have any takers on the sidewalk or tree abatement program?
Every year, no, not 2020, that was just kind of a strange year. But every year prior to that, we do have several of the hazardous tree removal cost matches. I don't have a lot of sidewalk grant match requests, but over the last maybe 7 or 8 years, we've done 5 or 6 of them. And when we had the facade grant program in place, we did 2. I think that was in 2015 or 2016, and we did 2. So these, like, relatively simple, not a lot, not a huge impact to our budget, but now maybe with COVID, maybe a little bit more timely to help people.
Thanks.
Do you have anything to add to that section?
Well, just mainly these incentives. I mean, the town will be offering the same incentives that you could get in other places. These just kind of sweeten the deal a little bit for coming into Mancos versus why Mancos versus elsewhere. So that's kind of the point, is to make it a little more attractive and business friendly here at Mancos.
And Rachel, this is also for existing businesses too, right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
And what it is they fill out this application, and it's up to $1,000 per business that we grant them, and they fix up. I think I read that there was a bunch of different I don't want to say rules, but different guidelines that they follow. Criteria.
Thank you. And I believe you could put a cap, like I think is what the town does with the tree, hazardous tree removal, of how much you will allocate towards that.
Right, but the facade is a little bit different than that, right?
No, you can do the same thing. You can say, we're gonna budget $5,000 for facade grants, first come, first serve.
Okay.
That's what we do with trees and sidewalks.
Oh, I see. So us as the board would say, we're gonna allocate 5,000 or something. So it isn't like ongoing. We had 20 businesses that want to apply for this. We don't have 20 grand to say, here you go. Okay.
I wouldn't recommend not capping it. I would put a cap on it and say,
how much?
And this year when it's spent, you know, we'll start again January of every year. But
okay.
You should probably put a cap on it.
Mm-hmm. Are you proposing to start this now, and what about, would that amend the budget?
We have some money in our economic development line item. That line item is allocated for Rachel's accounts payable and an economic development website, but there is still some left over. So that's kind of why, and we already have sidewalks and trees in the budget. That's why I would suggest maybe a $5,000 cap. If we're going to move forward with facade and beautification grants this year, I would suggest a $5,000 cap. And then when we start talking 2022 in June or July, we can revisit the issue. But I would suggest this year, if you're inclined to do these, I would put a $5,000 cap on it for the first year.
Forgive me if I missed this. It's been a long week already. But what kind of fees are we talking about abating?
Well, we'll get to that part. This part is just the easy. I kind of broke the staff report down into A, B, and C. A is the easy stuff, the facade grant, trees, sidewalks. And then B is the fee abatement, because that is much more involved.
Okay.
And we need some guidance on that, and could potentially have a much larger financial impact in the short term.
Yeah.
In the short term.
Okay.
So, and we can skip to that if you guys don't want to talk about facades. We can do that.
Grant, do you have any comments?
No, I don't have a problem with it. I think we could find $5,000 to put up the facades.
I agree.
I think it's a great idea. It's something that my business took advantage of over in Cortez. They do a beautification, and it's kind of a cost match up to a certain amount, and they have a pool of how much they have each year, and it's first come, first served. So I think that's a great idea. And it makes sense for us to kind of match what they're already doing with local communities around us, so that, you know, we have the same incentives, so it makes us business friendly as well. So I like that idea.
I wanted to speak to sidewalks for a minute, because I was one of the 5 people in the last 8 years that made application and took advantage of it. But, you know, costs have gone up, and $750 to me is not very much when we have what I would consider a pretty serious sidewalk situation in this town. I mean, to make it walkable, especially for senior citizens, I mean, it's a death trap going down Grand Avenue. And so if there's any way we could foster getting people to do something about their sidewalks, I would like to encourage that. Maybe it's next year's budget and raise it next year. But anyway, I just want to bring it up.
Is there anyone to hold up on the other? Denise?
Oh, I was just going to say that I like the idea and capping it at, you know, the first come first serve and 5,000. I think this is a great idea.
I agree with everything that's been said. I think it's a great idea. Some specific questions is, do we wish to offer? Yes, I agree. And then property owners only versus also tenants. I don't see why we wouldn't let tenants do it as long as they have like a notarized signature from the property owner, the building owner, because obviously we want the building owner to know what's going on. But you know, you might have an absentee business owner or building owner or something, and they just don't want to be bothered. And so if the tenant is willing to put that money into beautification, why not? And then in terms of does the board want to receive and approve, or do we continue to utilize administrative review? I think that's probably going to come down to how we set up the program. And, you know, because if it's set up like our contributions to nonprofits, then we typically hear those. If it's set up with specific criteria and staff can just do that, then I think that reduces the red tape and it makes the process go faster if staff can just administratively review. So I don't know either way, it just depends on how we set up the program.
And staff does sidewalks and trees now.
Correct.
Yeah. So if we do it like that, I see no problem with allowing staff to make the decisions.
The only thing I'd like to see is if we do decide to let staff administer this, is just a yearly review of how many businesses took advantage of that, and just kind of a progress report, so we know if it's even something that's, you know, wanted by the business community here.
We would include that, I think, in our quarterly economic development update.
That'd be great.
Like the staff, you know what I mean, like our work plans. We would
I just want
include
to keep us informed in it so that we know, you know, how many, so we're not doing this every few years, and how many took advantage of that 5 years ago, you know, that kind of thing, so.
Betsy, to answer your question or talk about sidewalks, we currently, for hazardous tree removal, match up to $1,500. So we could, if you wanted to, match up to $1,500 maybe for sidewalks. We could easily do that tonight with board consensus and approval when this is over. That's number one. Number two, the sidewalks are in bad shape, and we did talk about this a little bit last year, but because of the kind of economic impact of COVID, we backed off on code enforcement for anything that was going to cost several $1,000s.
Yeah.
So we, as part of our standard code enforcement process, would actually be sending those adjacent property owners letters that says your sidewalks need to be replaced.
And we could inform them of the program
at the same time, yes, say we have a matching program, because the sidewalks are the responsibility of that adjacent property owner.
Right.
But we did back off on code enforcement. The other thing that we talked about last year was getting a grant. Grand Avenue is owned by CDOT, so we had talked about getting a grant and starting the process. And what does it take? How much is it going to cost? Is there grant funding from CDOT or something to just start replacing all the sidewalks on Grand? We could also do that.
Yeah.
Understanding that it will take some time to make that happen.
So I am going to reiterate that when you're saying that the sidewalks and the code enforcement, it is a responsibility of the adjacent property owner, and we backed off on that, but we have not backed off on the shoveling of the snow.
Correct.
That is definitely still being code enforced.
Because you could do that for free. We backed off on anything that was going to, that was going to financially impact citizens and businesses significantly last year.
Yeah.
So just want to make that for everybody in the community too, to know that it is their responsibility to shovel the snow for their businesses. Cindy?
Yeah, I think just one more thing. You never know. In the, and I might be, no, I think I'm in the right place, Mancos Improvement Program, the application, it talks in several places about You know, if a property no longer meets code, you know, they don't conform to current standards, but we don't actually say that the money has to be used to bring it into compliance, I don't think. And so if that's what we're getting at, I think we need to really specifically state, like, you know, if the facelift is going to bring the building or the sign into compliance with our current codes, then the money can be used toward it. And if we're not trying to say that, then I think we should say something like it needs to get closer to our current standards or something.
It's in the guidelines.
I need a little help there.
It's in the eligibility guidelines for a couple places. Replacement of the existing non-conforming, like for the sign, for like replacing a sign, it says there if it's a non-conforming,
yeah,
it would make it eligible.
Yeah, but it says if it's non-conforming, it's eligible, but we don't actually say make it conform to our current code. And so I just think we need to go one more step.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Okay.
So it's like, great, I get money because I don't comply, but now I'm still not going to comply. I'm just going to make it prettier.
It does say, it says the new tenant signage does not qualify unless the property owner is replacing their existing non-conforming deteriorated freestanding sign with an upgraded improved sign.
Right, but it still
But
doesn't
it
say
still doesn't
it
say
complies
it's
with
conforming
the
code.
Yeah, so I think we just need to take it a step further and be real clear. I think that's what our intention is, but I also know people could use a lot of that as, you know, it doesn't actually say it. Yeah, because they're people and stuff costs money.
And we're going to add to this because facade beautification is what we talked about in our previous discussions. So this was just what we had used before when the program was in effect in 2016. So we'll tighten it up with that language, and then we're going to add some, we had talked beautification, landscaping, benches, you know, that kind of thing. So we'll add that information to this as well.
Cool.
I have one more question.
Okay.
Just on sidewalks. When was the last time this was, like, when did we create the $750 amount?
Prior to 2008.
Okay, so every year we look at, you know, cost of living increase and the inflation and everything when we're looking at fees for water and sewer and all of that. You know, I think we should look at some of that for the amount that it costs to replace a sidewalk, because the fees have definitely gone up since 2008. So as far as our grant, like as far as our 50-50 match, I think we should maybe look into how much it would cost a normal homeowner to replace their section of sidewalk, and at least get some numbers so that we know, you know, is $1,500, is that going to make a huge difference as opposed to $750, or, you know, what's the amount that's going to cost for a normal homeowner to do it?
Is $750 realistic?
Yeah.
Okay. I will absolutely do that. And again, maybe we need to bring this back. Because I would also, I agree with you on that. But I would caution you because in 2008, we didn't budget $12,000 in agency contributions.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't budget downtown beautification at $9,000. I mean, so we only did sidewalks and trees, that was it.
Right.
So we have to be careful as we start adding and increasing. Mm-hmm. I'm not necessarily opposed to it, please don't think that.
Yeah.
But we also have to take into consideration all of the other services and grants and things that we've added, and maybe we need to look at that as a whole.
So maybe.
Do you know what I mean?
Maybe, you know, we talked about possibly doing away with the agency contributions, and maybe it would be to our best benefit in 2022 to look at not doing that and taking that money and putting it toward these projects that would benefit our businesses, that would bring more money into the town.
Or it would benefit also just the you know, living here.
Right.
People that are, you know,
Yeah.
We've always, every time we give agency contributions,
Can you turn it down a little bit? You kicked it way up. Can you turn it down just a
yeah,
little
I'm here right now.
It's warmer here now, but it's freezing earlier.
But every year we do agency contributions, we always keep asking the question of, is this the purview really of this board? Especially when it pertains to a lot of nonprofits that do some of their work here, but not all of their work as well. So, you know, I'd rather see some of this money go into helping the citizens in this town and making it more pedestrian friendly in the long run too. So I definitely think that has its merits for next year too.
I do too. I think we need to look at that in 20.
As a parent who walks their kid around town here,
But I can also see
it's dangerous.
It is dangerous. It's also dangerous in front of our businesses.
It is, yes.
So
Yeah.
we can increase that and bring our businesses.
It's definitely a town-wide issue. It's not just Grand. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere, and of course, a lot of places don't have any sidewalks.
Right.
But we need to think about it. I mean, there's more and more emphasis on people staying in their homes as they age.
Right.
And we have to think about how do people get from there to here, you know, safely. And it's pretty rough at this point.
Yeah, it is.
So on facades, sidewalks, trees, do you want to leave everything the way it is this year and roll them out? Do you want me to research how much it costs to replace a sidewalk? You know what I mean? And then bring that information to, I have tentatively scheduled this discussion to continue to the March workshop because I thought maybe we would be, so we don't have to roll these out right now. I can bring additional information to the workshop and then we can decide then. Or
you can't decide at a workshop. You have to.
That's true, and then but it would give us some direction, and then I can bring it to a future meeting. You know what I mean? So roll them out now as they are, kind of thing, with the code and beautification and dollar amounts as they are, is number one. Or number two is don't roll anything out. You want to see more. We may need to increase the match.
Let's take a little more time and do it right.
I mean, we have the two programs now that are going forward with the
sidewalks and trees are here, and we can start pushing it.
Okay. Well, and even if we go to a workshop and then bring it to the later March meeting, we're still not even in that season yet for sidewalks or trees anyway. So, you know, even if we decide to increase things later down the line, we can always look at that too. So I don't think that, you know, time is really of the essence here. So we want to do it the right way.
Okay. So the next, item B under this is actual fee abatement, and this is brand new. We have never done it. We talked about it. We didn't come to consensus. We didn't finish the discussion in March. So we were still going through it. So Rachel has picked it up. Laura has been incredibly helpful on this. And just to kind of refresh the memory of those who were here and give those who weren't here some information, we talked about how do we incentivize businesses to move here or assist our existing businesses to grow in a meaningful way, because a facade grant is nice, but it's $1,000. So we discussed items that included either fee abatement or refunds or items of that nature, and we talked about potential long-term. So for example, we have some criteria. They have to pay a livable wage. They have to pay the Montezuma County livable wage. They have to bring in 1 to 3 jobs or 4 to 6 jobs or something. And then there was some other criteria that's in here, but those were the 2 big ones, I think, because if they commit to a livable wage and 1 to 3 new jobs, we will potentially commit to refunding to them 50% of their sales tax for 3 to 5 years, or property tax for 3 to 5 years. Let me say 3 years, because if they'll commit to 4 to 6 new jobs, full-time jobs, at a living wage in the town limits, then we'll rebate 50% of their property tax or sales tax for 5 years. Those could potentially be very incentivizing for businesses. Yes.
And what happens if we abate their fees and then they close their business and they're not paying property tax for 5 years?
So the way that we had talked about it back then, and we fleshed it out a little bit in here, but you'll see we still have questions and that kind of thing. The tentative process at the time that we talked about this was they make application, they provide the proof. At the end of those 3 years, we rebate.
Okay.
Or that was the original, how do we make this work and make sure that they're not, we're not going to rebate them in the first year and then they're gone.
Yeah, because how do we know they have 5 full-time employees? Or,
yes.
How do we know that? How do we police that?
Right. And this is the short version, and then Rachel, you guys can ask questions and Rachel can chime in. But, and then the thoughts about what is the process. Once we finalize this, we have guidelines, we have applications, they submit those applications, staff reviews, but the ultimate approval on this type of item comes from the board in the form of a resolution. So these items would absolutely come to you guys because they're potentially a much higher dollar amount.
By business.
Correct. However, and we had talked about, yes, maybe up front we're rebating some money, but after 3 years, we have a viable business, or we have a small business that's grown, or, and so we're expanding our tax base, because I don't know if you guys remember, but in 2013 or 2014, we did, with the help of a grant, kind of a financial overview of the town. And back then, and I can't imagine that it's changed that much, but back then, over 70% of our sales tax comes from businesses along the highway. And the top 10 pay mostly that 70%. One of those closed. We lost the Millwood. So since then, we've been thinking, researching, and talking about how do we expand our tax base so that if we lose another one, we're not going backwards.
Yeah.
So that was it's the short version again of those couple of months of discussions before COVID. And Rachel has picked this up and kind of run with it and worked with it and talked to Laura and worked her magic on it. So I don't know if you have anything to add to this section, Rachel?
No, I mean, I think you explained it quite well. So yeah, I mean, we need to discuss whether or not we want to allow some of these, for businesses where they don't actually own the property.
And that, say that a little louder.
Own the property.
Oh, that they own the
Yeah,
property.
so
Yes.
here it says that they must own the property, so not tenants. So
Right.
if a business comes in and they don't buy the business, they wouldn't get any incentive, but they're still bringing business to town. So would we want to consider maybe renting it? Let's just use an example. Okay, so I don't own the beehive. I don't own the building, but I decide I'm going to buy that business because I don't own that property. I wouldn't be eligible for any incentives. That's just an example.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it would make sense that if they're seeking abatement of sales tax, then we could deal with the tenant. And if they're seeking, like if we allow abatement of property tax, then we'd have to be dealing with the landowner. because they're gonna get abated and it's not gonna do the business any good.
Right.
So I think it's gonna depend on what they're applying for
Yeah.
and what we're willing to allow.
I vote for a workshop.
Okay.
I think this really warrants some discussion,
Yeah.
and I just like to spend some time with it in a workshop.
And I'd like to be fresh for it.
Okay.
Like it's after 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we will put this on the March 10th workshop.
Yeah.
Great.
So keep this, review it, think about it, sleep with it, bring questions. And before then, if as you're reviewing it, you're like, hey, I want to know more about this, please send it to me because I will research it and bring it to the workshop for everybody. So, or if you come up with, if you find a good article or whatever. So yeah, between now and March 10th, please think about this one and just send it to me. And then I will bring it to the workshop so everybody gets it at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Go.
Okay, so then we're going to move right along to the Main Street Bridge construction management.
Okay, Main Street Bridge. Design and engineering is done. Construction is being bid out. Fiber's being relocated. Now we are at construction management and materials testing, which is a requirement for construction. So SEH is our engineer of record on this project. They used to be Russell Engineering, but they've switched to SEH. So SEH purchased Russell Engineering, but our engineer did stay. So we've had the same engineer since 2015 on this project. So now it's time for construction management. And the bid for construction management and testing is $72,650 on this project. I included the construction management breakdown for you, which was $33,000. I included structural review, which was $9,300. There is task number 3 in your attachment. The precast, pre-stressed concrete box girder inspection at manufacturing plant, plus or minus $5,000. That is required. So when they're building the girders, our engineer and our sub-consultants on this project will not be inspecting those because they have to be inspected at the plant before they even ship them to us. So I included that for you. We have no idea who that is because we don't know who the contractor is going to choose to manufacture those. That's going to be on the contractor, but we are required to inspect them. And then Troutner Geotech is Troutner Geotech is soils and that type of stuff. So, and they are, their bid was 23 to 25, so I put 25 in the budget because I believe they'll come in at 25. I don't think they'll come in at 23 on this project. So all of those items total $72,650. It will be a lump sum not to exceed contract, barring any unforeseen issues over there. I don't necessarily anticipate any change orders on this. We may see change orders on construction, but I don't foresee any change orders on this item. And required, this is required. We cannot inspect or manage this project in-house. We fought 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks with CDOT to manage our own traffic control, and we did manage to save $83,000 there, which will be eaten up by this and the fiber, but just for traffic control, it was a 3 to 4 weeks. So we must, according to CDOT guidelines, have construction management and testing on this project. And outside of any of the financial or staff time, we are not qualified. We want professionals inspecting that bridge. Mm-hmm. It needs to last for 150 years. It needs to be safe. So this is, it's a requirement. I'm so sorry.
Part of this also, and that will be making sure that our building is safe.
And that is absolutely huge. And that's our construction management. That will be covered under the $33,000 here, because over the course of this project, when the budget and project were originally discussed and brought up in 2015, it was, oh, we think it'll cost this much, here's how much a bridge costs. Well, over the years and over the time, and with additional engineering and with additional structural from Stantec and with additional geotech from Troutner, there have been some serious concerns brought up about how do we protect the integrity of the Bower Bank building, because the coal bin under the sidewalk, I mean, the sidewalk's like a platform on that coal bin. What happens with the vibration and the impaction to that building? What happens when we start to excavate the street away? The wall is not stable, so we've added what they call micropile curtain walls. That's increased the budget overall with engineering and anticipated construction in excess of $75,000. So we have to do everything right, and we do not have unlimited funding. But again, this is a 150-year project. And that Bower Bank building, as part of this process, the contractor is required to provide a shoring plan. They're required to provide a plan as to how they are going to protect that building. Video diaries, photos. So as part of the construction bid process, there are project special provisions and that will require that they provide these plans to us, and those plans will be given a ranking score when we're tallying bids that we received. This will not be a who's the cheapest project. That's not how construction's going to work, and it's not how, in my opinion, construction management and structural and soils and testing should work. Not for this project.
Okay. So do you need a vote?
I do. I need a motion, a second, and a roll call vote. And then just if it's approved by the board, we have a standard form of independent contract that I will be requiring. So some of the things like that Troutner put in here where we have to identify them, we'll be negotiating that, David and I. But the dollar amount and authorizing me to enter into contract, yes.
Anybody else have any questions before we? Then I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the contract with SCH in the amount of $72,650 for construction management and testing for the Main Street Bridge project.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by the Mayor Pro Tem Fred Brooks and a second by Trustee Bill McWhirter to approve the contract with SCH in the amount of $72,650 for construction management and testing for the Main Street Bridge project. Please call the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Fred Brooks.
Aye.
Trustee Cindy Simpson.
Aye.
Trustee Betsy Harrison.
Aye.
Trustee Brent McWhirter.
Aye.
Trustee Janice Bryan.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving right along, then we have the small community newsletter and wastewater grant application.
This came up last minute, so I apologize. We did not, didn't give you a warning at the last meeting that this was going to be on the agenda. I just, last week was advised of this funding opportunity for the water plant project. So we've secured over $1 million in grants on that project so far, and that's not the low interest loan, that's just grant funding. And then this, if we are successful, we will ask for and may be awarded up to an additional $400,000. So what I'm asking is for approval to apply for the grant and execute the grant contracts if we are successful.
Any questions?
Woo-hoo.
Yeah, let's do it.
I move we authorize the town administrator to submit the small communities water and wastewater grant application in the amount of $400,000 and execute grant documents upon award.
Second.
And we have a motion by trustee Cindy Simpson and a second by trustee Betsy Harrison to authorize the town administrator to submit the small communities water and wastewater grant application in the amount of $400,000 and execute grant documents upon award. Heather, would you call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Fred Brooks.
Aye.
Trustee Brent McWhorter.
Aye.
Trustee Janice Bryan.
Aye.
Trustee Cindy Simpson.
Aye.
Trustee Betsy Harrison.
Aye.
And motion carries.
Okay.
Yes,
I'll keep
please.
working on that one. Yes.
Yes,
And I
please,
started
make
work
that
on it.
$400,000.
I didn't think you guys would say no, so I've already started working on it. So. And the deadline is in the next week or two, so it's kind of a tight, but we have all the information from prior grant applications, so we'll keep you posted.
So the next thing on the agenda is the 2021 agency contributions. Okay.
And I just am looking for some feedback. So we paused the agency contributions in 2020. We did fund for 2021. We always have 2 rounds. One round is due in September for funding in January of the next year. So we've allocated $1,500 of our $12,000 line item for agency contributions in 2021. And then the second round is due April 15th. And I wanted to make sure that we want to consider the second round of applications, because as a side discussion, what we had talked about is we've applied for a community response, like a mental health grant, to fund the community response program. I do follow up with them every 4 weeks. We submitted that application in September of last year. It is a rolling program, so there is no deadline. So there's no deadline where they have to respond to me. So I do continue to follow up, and they have our application and they're looking at it every month. So we had talked about, if we get that grant, do we want to use some agency contribution money towards it? And I honestly, I don't know when I'm going to hear on that. There is no timeline. I don't have any information. I follow up every 4 weeks. So I just wanted to reach out and say, do we want to do the April round of agency contributions for 2021 and just move forward with that? Or do we want to sit on that just in case and hold it in case we hear on the grant?
So,
I appreciate the thoughts that Brent had, and I think that we should lose the small agency contributions and put it into things that would really benefit the structure of the town. Sidewalks, trees, the stuff you talked about.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, so stop the program for the April 15th round, or stop the program forever?
I think for right now, stop it in April.
Okay.
And just see what the feedback is.
Okay. I have heard...
Things may turn around, you know, and businesses do great, and then we can talk about it next year, but let's use that money for our town this year.
Well, I've been on the board now for 3 years. And in the 3 years I've been on the board, I've struggled with this every single time we've had things come up. And it's not that I don't think that we should be helping some of these groups in the area. I think we do a lot to help some of these groups, but there's also a lot of, it seems like we're doing the same thing that a lot of other places are doing in the area, and there's certain groups that are here that help with these things. And I feel like we as government should be doing what government does best, and that's facilitate things that pertain to our people.
That's what government does best?
Well, it's what it's supposed to do. It's not always the case, we know that, but you know, I feel better knowing that our taxpayers' money is going to go towards things that are exactly happening here in town. And I always struggle when we get different groups here that are helping in the community, but also helping other communities. And I don't always feel like some of I feel like our money could be better spent in the community itself.
It's worth a try.
So that's, I mean, I literally have struggled with this every single year that I've been on this board. And I just feel like that it's an opportunity for us to try something different for now. And also in those 3 years, the amount of applications from small agencies has dwindled every single year. The first year I was on this board, I literally remember, because it was one of my first meetings I was here, and our packet was like 102 pages or something like that, because I printed it out, because I didn't have a computer yet for here. And I was like, what am I getting myself into? And then the year after that, we only had maybe 4 or something like that in one of the rounds. And I think we also had one where we didn't even have anything. So I just feel like, you know, we need to maybe do something different. And I think this is an opportunity to try something different. And it's not set in stone. It doesn't mean it has to go away forever, but.
Yeah, I agree to a point with what Brent said. You know, there's a lot of services that, while they may not be based in Mancos and may only service, you know, 3 or 4 people in Mancos, like mental health services or, you know, something like that. I still feel like we need to help make sure that those services are available in our community. And so I agree, you know, to a point of we want to maximize the dollars that are utilized right here in Mancos. But we do, I think, also need to keep an eye out for what services are there that we need to have for our people that live here. I mean, these are all agencies that benefit our people.
And we're not big enough to have one.
Yeah, and we can't have our own mental health service here. We can't have a lot of those things. And so it's always, to me, it's this weighing of, you know, who's serving the most or who's serving the most desperately in need of it. And so I would support shifting it for 2021 and then, you know, keeping it on the discussion table for budget for next year.
Yeah, that's me. I don't want to do away with it totally, but I'd like to see us, you know, maybe for 2021.
Yeah.
See what we can do to do something for our town and our businesses and our people in the town, and then maybe see where we're at financially next year and see where, you know, the whole country is, and maybe we will need to do more mental health next year or more hospice because we've got more Mancos people, you know, on hospice, or more suicide awareness or whatever, or more homeless. You know, I mean, we may have to do those things.
Well, and I think what Heather was saying too, with, you know, this possibility of us doing this pilot program, that's going to have a huge impact on the mental health in this area. So, you know, I'm not trying to like say that we're going to redouble our efforts if we do it this way, but, you know, if we do have something along those lines of a mental health professional that can come out instead of a police officer to deal with somebody in crisis, you know, I think that might be a better way of doing it than even our small contribution to some of these other mental health providers in the area too.
Did you need a vote on that?
I did. So board consensus is to cancel the April 15th round, but during budget talks next year, bring up this agency contribution, bring up the agency contribution program again. The other thing I was going to say was, you know, nothing stops us from changing the guidelines. Maybe it must be a unique need. You know what I mean? So I'll put that on the kind of discussion for the 2022 budget, and we'll talk about it during one of the workshops when we're talking about budget.
Great.
Okay. Cool. I will do that. So for right now, we'll say no, April 15th round. Okay.
Okay, so then items for the March 10th, 2021 agenda. We've got the economic development and city discussion at our workshop. We're going to be talking about motorized vehicles on public lands discussion.
That's on your email. that email you received?
Yeah, I got an email from
Sheila Wheeler.
I'm not going to find it fast, but I sent the email I got it from, and I sent it to Heather, and said it was a discussion, and when they have, she'll have more information on it. It's the 2021 Public Art Program, the committee reports, Region 9 and CDOT TPR, February bills and claims, and then we will have a public hearing, transfer of the retail marijuana establishment license from Willow North Inc., DBA The Bud Farm, to the Cultured Family LLC.
And then the Paths to Mesa Verde discussion and the Relocation Guide discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'll do is kind of what I did with this one. Items where we expect presentations or people to come, I'll put them at the top of the agenda.
And,
as much as I can.
And Heather, check that motorized vehicles and see if that's something that needs to be done right away, or if we can put it off maybe until the April, because it looks like we're going to have a huge long meeting. If that's not something that needs to be timely right now, we can.
I'll review the email that you sent, excuse me, and ask. I'll review the email because I don't remember all the details, and see if is she just wanting a discussion about it, or is it, I'm going to the legislative session and I need this. I'll review that, and if I can, I'll push that to the next meeting.
Okay. And I'm going to ask Joe real fast. I see where you guys are meeting with Dolores with regards to
logging.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow.
Woo!
Yeah.
They're wanting to shut down all the logging trucks and everything coming through Dolores.
It's just,
there's no possible way that it can be done to start with. And logging that's getting agriculture are two of the most sustaining things we have in Montezuma County.
How many mills do we have now over there? 3?
There's
Ironwoods,
Aspenwall Woods, there's Stoner Top. There's 3 or 4 of them over there.
Well, and shutting down that would hurt Aspenwall and Steel.
It would hurt all of them.
And they just, you know, big building, and I mean, when I heard that, I went.
I watched their meeting with it.
And they're concerned about exhaust brakes on the trucks making noise and stuff coming off that hill, and they were wanting to ban the exhaust brakes. Well, that's the biggest safety issue you could ever do, is send a load of logs off that 6-7% grade hill with no exhaust brake.
You should tell them if they want to hear a really big sound, get rid of those.
Yeah, them houses down there in the bottom, them trucks are going to be running through, going to make a lot more noise than that. But we're going to meet with them again tomorrow, and I don't have any idea how that's going to come out. But
good luck.
I agree.
Well, we're going to support the logging industry. I can guarantee that.
So, yes, Heather.
I just have a question, because I'm sorry I haven't heard about this. Isn't Main Street, the Main Street in Dolores, isn't that a CDOT highway?
That's a CDOT highway, and Montezuma County Road takes off and goes up the hill there, so that's a Montezuma County road. I don't know exactly where the
jurisdiction
town switches over.
The one that you take up.
But it's still a right of way.
Yeah, it's the road they're talking about.
Up there, so they have nothing to stand on.
And
try to shut those logging trucks.
Well, and it's a 20-year contract or something, isn't it?
20 to 25-year contract.
With the Forest Service.
Yes.
Yeah, we're wanting to stop all forest.
And if they stop that there, they're in the biggest fire danger of anybody in the country if all of that lower country would catch fire from the beetle kill and all that stuff. So it's just.
So did they bring this up at their town board meeting?
At their board-to-board last week. I watched the board-to-board just to
I
kind of.
know it was
supposed to be on their town board meeting too, and I went.
And this will be on YouTube and stuff tomorrow afternoon if anybody wants to watch it.
Yeah,
4 o'clock. Yes.
It's on your YouTube channel, the county commissioner.
Yeah.
I'll have to pay
And I think, it'll be a Zoom meeting too, so if anybody wants to Zoom in there and support the logging industry, you're more than welcome.
So
I'll have to follow that, because we do get, just here, staff does get complaints about how can we stop trucks on Grand. They don't want trucks going on Grand through town. And my answer was always, but it's a CDOT highway, I can't stop them. So that's why I was surprised. So I am going to pay attention, just in case, I guess.
I believe Mancos used to have a truck route where they had to go down the main highway and then turn in on, I don't know what the name of the street is down there.
They turn on Monty Street.
On Monty,
Yes.
which is beat to death.
Which is where I live.
Right on the corner there.
But I don't think we can stop them from going down Main Street.
No, it's a public
Well,
highway.
we've already asked them,
Well-
when they did their de-annexation, they promised us that they would stop using the south side of Monty Street once they got that building built over there, so.
Yeah.
I think we've already got as many concessions out of them as we possibly can at this point.
I mean, I think the only way you could do it is to set weight limits, and I'm not sure what the legalities are in terms of setting weight limits, but it's what can your roads handle? And currently Monty can't handle semi-traffic, but yet it is. So I think that would probably be the only way that we could, but I mean, Grand, I mean, that's a state highway, it's built to withstand that kind of traffic, so I don't know how we would.
I'm just, now that it's on my radar, if I need to, I can go back and listen to them because
And that's what James is gonna be here next week too.
Okay. Perfect.
For some of that stuff. 'Cause it's
Next
a
week?
natural resource. No, I mean,
Next
weeks.
meeting.
It's the next meeting.
I did not know that. Is that the RS 2477
Well,
discussion?
that's a different discussion.
He's coming for one. I have to reach out. I'll reach out to him.
All right, are we done?
Okay. I just need a motion and a second to adjourn.
I move to adjourn at 9:40.
Second.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Sorry.
It's been a really long day.
Thanks for your help on
Good
the
night.
computer.
I've spoiled you guys.